Remember that opposition meeting also opposing any move towards a one nation, one election bill, which has been the subject of speculation in New Delhi's political circles ever since the government made it clear that it will have a special session of parliament between the 18th and the 22nd of September, soon after the G20 meeting. Remember, in past special sessions of parliament have been held with or for a specific agenda. However, this time, nothing in terms of an agenda has been set or clearly indicated from the government, resulting in speculation that it could be about discussing the outcomes of the G20 leaders meeting to potential efforts to push through legislation, or at least attempt at bringing in a legislation like the one nation, one election concept. Adding to that speculation is the fact that the government this morning announced a committee to look at such a legislation under the leadership of former President Ramnath Kovind. It cannot be easily pushed through, remember, as there are huge legislative and procedural challenges. To start with, it needs a 2/3 majority in both houses of parliament to move through, and a consensus. Remember, regional parties, including those who've been neutral between the INDIA and NDA, also may have reservations, some of them, on such a bill coming through. The Election Commission, though, has said that its machinery can handle it. Arguably, there are several advantages, but before that, our NDTV's Megha Prasad gives us an explainer on the long history for this one nation, one election conversation. Remember, it's not yesterday or today that this conversation started off. Megha Prasad gives us a recap of the conversation so far.
The concept of one nation, one election is not a newly conceived one. In fact, it is as old as our Constitution. After the adoption of the Constitution in 1950, polls to the Lok Sabha and all state assemblies were held simultaneously every 5 years between 1951 and 1967. India polled simultaneously for the centre and the state in 1952, 1957, 1962 and 1967. Though this process could not be carried forward as new states started to be formed and some old ones reorganized, and soon after it was discontinued following the dissolution of few legislative assemblies in 1968-69. The idea to revert to simultaneous polls was mooted in the annual report of Election Commission in 1983. Later, the Law Commission report referred to this in 1999. In 2014, after coming to power, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government gave a strong pitch for the one nation, one poll. At many occasions, the government talked about their intention to implement it. In 2018, the Law Commission submitted a draft report endorsing the implementation of simultaneous polls. The Commission also made a recommendation suggesting changes to the electoral laws and articles pertaining to the same, and examined the legal and constitutional constraints therein. As per Law Commission, the simultaneous elections can only be held through appropriate amendment to the Constitution. It also said that at least 50% of the states must ratify the constitutional amendment. In 2019, former Rajya Sabha MP from BJP, Vinay Sahasrabudhe, was given the responsibility by party top leadership to create awareness in the society about the concept of one nation, one poll and evaluate the idea. Two-day seminar was organized on the subject, consultations were carried out, and later that year a report was submitted to the Prime Minister. In 2020, while addressing the concluding session of All India Presiding Officers Conference, Prime Minister Narendra Modi raised the pitch for one nation, one election and one voter list.
Remember, there are procedural as well as legislative challenges, so it's not something that can be easily pushed through. Arguably, the advantages as far as the government is concerned, it could reduce expenses on elections, limited strain on resources, and could reduce uncertainties. But disadvantages, and specifically flagged off by the opposition, is that it allows enormous scope for misuse of central machinery, issues that could get mixed during state and parliamentary elections. Also, there is the one nagging question of what happens if a state or a central government falls mid-term. Let's also listen in to what former President Ramnath Kovind had to say a few years ago about this one nation, one election concept.
देश में गवर्नेंस के प्रति सजग लोगों में देश के किसी न किसी हिस्से में लगातार हो रहे चुनाव से अर्थव्यवस्था और विकास पर पड़ने वाले विपरीत प्रभाव को लेकर चिंता है। बार बार चुनाव होने से मानव संसाधन पर बोझ तो पड़ता ही है, आचार संहिता लागू होने से देश की विकास प्रक्रिया भी बाधित होती है। इसलिए एक साथ चुनाव कराने के विषय पर चर्चा और संवाद बढ़ना चाहिए तथा सभी राजनीतिक दलों के बीच सहमति बनाई जानी चाहिए।
So what's next? Is it easy to walk this talk? Joining us this evening, Vasudha Venugopal, NDTV's reporter who covers the BJP and the central government very closely. Also with us, author and journalist Rashid Kidwai. First to you, Mr. Kidwai, what is the sense that you're picking up of it? Suddenly this conversation sparks off over the since last evening.
See, I find it rather bizarre because the operative part, as your correspondent was also explaining about, one nation, one poll thing is about, consensus. That there is no consensus. You see, elections are not everything that's about democracy. It is not a, overall manifestation. It's a very important manifestation, but there are a lot of things about accountability, about, right to information, and so many things are there. So what the government is trying to do is trying to shift a goalpost, bring another kind of master stroke. If the government has done so well in economy, in diplomacy, in various spheres of life, Modi kafi hai. What is the need for this? And this is not even just to give you an idea. You would need to get 28 lakh the EVM machines. Where are you going to get it from, and where is the money going to come from? And there's so many things are there. And how are you going to dissolve this, democratically elected governments like Mamata Banerjee's or Aam Aadmi Party or Aap Victory in Punjab? So I think it's a very kind of reckless exercise, if it at all is being, tried to, being put in motion. There should have been broader consensus of political parties, and the kind of divide that exists between India Alliance and the NDA, there is no scope for it.
Right, you're saying that it's not something that can be rushed out, and I think a lot of people hold that point of view. We don't even know whether it's going to be rushed in. It's all matter of speculation now. I'd like to pose that question on what the intentions of the government are to Vasudha, but before I put that, Vasudha, I just want to play for our viewers an interview you did with Aragya Sengupta, constitutional expert, on what the legal position is. Let's just listen into that.
So what we understand is that simultaneous elections cannot take place within the existing constitutional framework of the country. So in case the government decides to go ahead with this, what are the changes that would be required and what kind of efforts will be put in?
Yeah, I think first it's imperative to clarify that simultaneous elections is a good thing that the constitution itself envisaged. So when our first election was held in 1951-52, it was an election to the Lok Sabha as well as to all the states that were around at that point of time. It's only that the cycle got broken as state governments either lost confidence or were dismissed, and many state governments were dismissed during the Indira Gandhi period and thereafter as well. So simultaneous elections is not a new idea. It is reverting to an old idea first. But getting back to that old idea is constitutionally a bit challenging. So the short answer to your question is that it will require a constitutional amendment to Article 173, which says that every state legislature shall be in existence for a period of 5 years from the time of its first meeting. And it also requires a corresponding amendment to the Lok Sabha. Now, where it gets tricky is that this amendment has to be done not only by Parliament, but by a majority of the state legislatures. So we have to do it in at least 14 states. So getting that kind of constitutional amendment through, especially now close to general elections, is going to be difficult. So the idea of one nation, one poll is a good idea. It's sound in principle, but tricky to implement in practice.
Vasudha, now that we've put all the details out, give us a sense of what you're hearing from the government. Is there really going to be an effort? Obviously the formation of the committee this morning sort of bolstered the thought or a speculation around that it could be brought in during a special session of Parliament. Is that really the thought process? What are you hearing?
So Veera, like you and Rashid sir were also saying that this idea is not new. It's been in public domain since 2016, but because the government has been making it clear that it intends to restructure the election cycle of the country, to synchronize both the Lok Sabha polls and the state assembly polls. But, political realities will, of course, outweigh, the intent. And one nation, one poll falls in this larger framework of the BJP-RSS belief system because, they also believe that a state's interest cannot be very different from the national interest. And of course, they believe that it will also reduce the impact of vote bank politics or appeasement politics. These are core issues of the BJP RSS. One thing we cannot forget is that the government has been consistently talking about it. The Prime Minister has been talking about it. And most importantly, by bringing this in the political discourse again, there is, of course, possibility of a discussion. But BJP has to be very sure of its numbers. This government does that, brings in a bill only when it is fairly sure of handling the numbers. And that is one reason why I think that this is more of an exercise to also build consensus, create awareness, and it's also the election year. Remember in 2018, I remember the OBC Commission getting constitutional status,
right.
And every aspect should be also seen with the underlying idea that elections are just about a year away, and that would be also a primary focus.
Oh, absolutely, Vasudha. In fact, that's the reason why there is so much speculation, and also some observers who actually follow the issue of or understand the constitutional position as well as parliamentary procedure find it absolutely unbelievable that it could even be rushed through. Given that, Mr. Kidwai, what do you think could be on the agenda for the special session of Parliament? Obviously, the impact that this whole conversation has had seems to be that it's hastened the opposition's efforts to get its act together. There was initially a talk that the Congress wanted to declare most of these things post the next round of assembly elections, but now there seems to be a sense of urgency in the opposition.
Yeah, so Raghav, you are asking a very interesting question. I think the government of the day, no matter what it says, is not very, sure-footed about winning 2024. It has some kind of anxiety and whatever is happening on the opposite camp. Remember last time when the India opposition had met, the Modi government, they had they paraded 38 political parties to, showcase their kind of, strength of alliance politics. Now, if the plank is Modi hi kafi hai, then why are you doing all these things? So I am saying that the BJP is looking for a pole plank, for a master stroke, as they're saying that, ad world and all, kuch tufani kare, kuch, something earth-shattering thing is done so that people, the votes get, swayed in a one direction. And I think that is a quest. So whatever is happening, but to take it a legislature course, to bring it a special session of parliament, something, it has to be a legislative affair and it has to have some kind of trickle-down effect. So you can't have early polls. So I think both opposition and government, they are just playing this kind of, psychological, psyops. They're trying to outwit each other, and perhaps in days' time we'll get to know. And what I wonder is how government can, keep it under the wraps, because there is a business advisory committee of parliament where they have to disclose it, they have to circulate their agenda. My friend Vasudha knows all these things.
Right. Right, so it's still a matter of question on what's going to be in store in that special session of Parliament. Vasudha, if I can push you a little bit, I believe we can go across to our colleague Arvind Gunasekaran as well. But if we can't, let me push Vasudha a little bit on this. Vasudha, what are you hearing? What could be on the in store in the special session?
So, Veera, we know that, there is much for the government to celebrate because you have had Chandrayaan success. And then, of course, G20 is also it's headed towards a success. So the Prime Minister is also going to address the United Nations General Assembly. So much to talk about, and economy is also sort of like showing good numbers. So the government has a lot of good things to talk about. And this is election year, of course. So the government will look for every platform to sort of talk about its achievements. But other than that, women, caste, social engineering, corruption, some of these things are on the government's plate. Kashmir hearings are going on, but trust me, this government remains tight-lipped about a lot of issues. So it's very difficult to even
I'll put it shortly for you. I'll put it in short for you, Vasudha. It could be from the moon to the sun to the earth. It could be anything that they will discuss. Let me get Arvind Gunasekar. Finally, he's able to join us. Arvind, give us a quick sense of what you're hearing from the opposition. Obviously, was this move, the impact of this move and the discussion on this one nation, one election concept, has that resulted in a sense of haste in the opposition in terms of getting its act together?
Veera, before answering that particular question, we also reached out to some of our sources in the Election Commission of India. We did ask them whether the Election Commission is preparing itself to hold the simultaneous elections, because the Election Commission as of now is preparing to hold the 5 state assembly elections that also include Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Telangana. So we did reach out to our sources in the Election Commission, and what we are being told is that as of now, the Election Commission has not been informed anything about holding simultaneous elections. So for now, the Election Commission is going ahead with its own schedule of holding the 5 state assembly elections. So as per Elections Commission schedule, they have to complete the 5 state assembly elections, including Telangana, before December 13th, because December 13th is the day the term of Telangana Assembly is ending. So they want to hold the assembly elections before December 13th, and that's where the Election Commission is going ahead with its schedule only to hold the 5 state assembly elections. So what you are being told is that the full commission will be visiting Madhya Pradesh on Monday to oversee the poll preparedness in Madhya Pradesh. So this is something what we are learning from our sources in Election Commission. Again, coming to the resources that would be required to hold simultaneous elections in this particular case, it would be somewhere around, according to our sources, it would be the Election Commission will need somewhere around 25 lakh EVMs, both ballot units and also CUs, almost 25 lakh ballot units, which is the component of EVM. So almost the Election Commission will need 25 lakh EVMs along with 25 lakh of VVPATs. So as of now, what we are being told is that Election Commission has somewhere around 13 lakh of EVMs and also VVPAT. In order to Election Commission to hold the simultaneous elections, they would need double the amount of what they have now. So that's where what we are learning from our sources, that as of now, Election Commission is not not very much prepared to hold the simultaneous elections immediately. So even if the Constitution is amended, both Article 83 and also Article 85 when it comes to Lok Sabha, and also Article 172 and Article 174 when it comes to state assemblies, even that is done, but it would need some time for the Election Commission to prepare itself to hold the simultaneous elections.
So this is all much talk right now. We don't know how it's going to play out in the coming days. But thank you, Arvind, for putting that in perspective. Rashid also made that point about the Election Commission having to be ready. It's not something that can happen overnight. This is something that may have to take a transition or a transition process that may even last a few years. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us. We'll keep a close track and find out. The moment we find out what is going to be on the agenda in that special session, we'll bring that across to you.